Well, hello everyone. This is Ann Kulyk from the Soul Mechanic Show. I just thought I better do an update with you because I haven't talked to you for quite some time, and I wanted my audience to know that I still really care about them very much. And I have gotten really excited at a certain point. In the middle of May, I finally got to see some of the shows you guys actually liked or didn't necessarily like. And then some of the things started going really wonky with the people that were helping to host my show. I just feel like I better give you a bit of an update of what happened since and how I'm going to be trying to take over on my own. We'll see how that all works out because I'm going to be having to teach myself some different things, and I'll appreciate your patience in the process. I was trying to do my intro and my image and stuff like that with whatever I'm using right now, but I thought I'm going to be just spending more time being a perfectionist. I am a Virgo, and those things can happen, and I'll get too carried away. But the most important thing is that I communicate with you guys. As really did realize that they were, especially on the audio platform, because that was where they were monetizing. It appeared like there were quite a few of you who have downloaded my show. But I do think that I need to give you a bit of an update on what actually happened, and that some of the things were a little bit beyond my control, some miraculous things that happened. And I have been really trying to decide, do I want to tell them, the truth, or do I want to tell them part the truth, or do I want to just pick up where I left off? Or I feel like I really might need to tell you guys a bit of the truth. So before we go any further right now, I'm going to be calling our higher self. So let's set some energy here because I've already been playing with this a bit, and I've had some emotional stuff that over the period of time, just going through some different change because I didn't get attached initially when we started on this journey together, when they had reached out to me for me to consider working with them. We had started on a certain trajectory, and I could feel on an energetic level that it had started to change. And I asked them, I said, listen, I'm starting to feel that whatever you guys actually initially asked me to come here for, and that was probably before I even did my first show with you. A lot of you might not even have known that, but I've been navigating through that. And if you did notice, sometimes, even though I did share some very personal things, and that maybe I might not necessarily been as excited. And part of it was because of the fact that sometimes there wasn't a lot of input from them. And at the same time, what most of you as viewers might not necessarily know, there's not necessarily a lot of, when you're doing something like this and you're just revealing yourself on a screen to others, some in a lot of cases by yourself, it is a very vulnerable experience. And our society has gotten really accustomed to consuming information and people putting it out there. But I don't know if you necessarily know what it's like to be on my end of it, giving out that stuff. Especially, I revealed a lot of personal things about my spiritual journey, especially, and it's not was in a confined container, say for example, in like a Facebook group or anything like that. I was just putting myself out there publicly and adjusting to revealing so much of myself and my life and things like that. So this has been a interesting experience for me all around, I guess I should say. But I just wanted to give you guys a bit of an update on some of the things I was excited about, that I had been excited about, and then it went into a bit of the pooper because of the fact that they would end up moving my show to a different platform, and then they would end up closing shop, and then I would end up having to figure out how I can get my show back with all my content, which I had created because I had gotten a wonderful idea on how I wanted to kind of not necessarily repurpose it, just in some ways they would call it that, but it was actually, I had this wonderful idea because I actually wanted to see if the people who were watching my show were actually getting what I was teaching them or just consuming it. Because on this journey, there's one thing about hearing something, and there's another thing about actually incorporating it into becoming more of it. And if you do recall the last show that I did, I had taught you some very important things. And then right near the end, I had said to you, I said, I really want to know how much you're getting. And not from a place of like testing you, not from a place of you're getting like marks or something like that, but more from a place of how much are you actually really getting from how much of this, what I've shared with you, are you able to incorporate in your life? And in a lot of cases, it won't be able to really incorporate in until you apply it and then see it in your life. And then it becomes a little bit more tangible and real to you. And that was what I was really hoping I'm really hoping that with some of the ideas that I've had that I haven't had a chance to fully implement yet, that it will be that for you. But anyway, let me just pause for a second and I'm going to come back. I'm not pausing for you just so I can get a bit of a handle on this because this is all, I've got so many things I want to tell you and I just want to make sure that I'm saying them in the right order. One of the things that's popping up right now that my guides want me to share with you first was in the middle of May, I finally got collaborator access from them because what I had was really wanting to know is some of the shows that I felt really what I was really sharing with you, and I wanted to see whether it was important to you, my audience. I wanted to see if you guys liked it as much as I had hoped you would, or took an interest in it as much as I hoped, not because of from a place of whatever, just to say these are really important things that I wanted to share with them. And I would hope that whoever was interested, it was as important to them as it was to me. And I will say the beauty in that experience at that point for me was that in the middle of May, I got to at least see that because they were not monetizing or pushing out as much on the YouTube, like in video stuff. And truthfully, I was actually more accustomed to looking at videos to see how many people were actually viewing them because most of the people that I've watched over the years have been on video, which is what I'm making for you right now. But in a lot of cases, a good portion of the people that had connected to my work or were connecting to my work, I'm calling it work because this is what I feel like my mission is a part of what my spiritual work, it's not work, it's my path. It's just a simple way to describe it. We were more audio listeners, right? And then I'm going, oh my gosh, if it's audio, like, how are they getting some of the handouts? Sometimes I was using like certain things and I was showing you some different handouts and I was showing you different emotional scales and things like that. And then I'm wondering, where are these people getting all of that if they're listening to the audio version of it? I guess like the what I will say is the amazing part, which I didn't even fully understand myself, because the time period I came from, we were not that technological. So I guess what I'm trying to say is when I'm looking at like the podcast or show or whatever you want to call it, I didn't even realize that there were that many people that really liked my show until I got in there and I was talking to Gemini, to be honest with you, some of the Chat GPT and Gemini. I ended up telling them how many downloads I had, and they were like, that's a pretty good thing. And I'm like, going, really? Are you serious? I didn't even know. I didn't even know myself. Because when you're putting out information like this, it's a very vulnerable thing. You're talking to the world, but they're not necessarily talking back. I'm an energetic being, like I'm a giving kind of, like I'm even a touchy type of person. I'm a healer, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is to reveal all this stuff, like when you're a sensitive being like I am, and maybe not necessarily always get that much feedback at the, you're not getting it at the time, you're just putting it out there and you're just going, oh my God, did I even make sense to these people? Do they even understand half the stuff I'm telling them? In a lot of cases, I would have to watch it after myself to go, did I really share with them what I had hoped to share? Because I'm doing this to help you, but I'm also doing this to just, I want to make sure that you actually understand what I'm telling you, because it doesn't matter if you don't understand it, then it's useless, right? So, anyway, I'm just sharing from my heart some of the things from my own experience with it. So in the middle of May, I would finally get to see some of the statistics, maybe the shows you might have liked a little bit more and this and that, whatever. This wasn't to be valid. This was not about me needing to be validated. This was me like going, I'm trying to find the people that are really meant to benefit from my work, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind getting to know them a little bit better. This is the part that can be a little challenging with this piece of the journey is I'm sharing a good portion of myself with you, but I might not necessarily know you, but you know me, right? So this is a very intimate way of getting to know me, but I'm not getting a chance to really get to know you. Obviously I genuinely care about human beings. When I'm out in the world, I'm interacting with them all the time. It's just that, and I love animals too, and it's part of what I came to feel like is a very important thing that we all come here to Earth to be able to do is to love one another. Anyway, in the middle of May, I would get access to that information, and it was a pretty decent experience for me at that point. And then what would end up happening would be I would do my next show And I would see like all the numbers catapult down to nothing. And I was like, how the heck is that possible? Just seeing all these numbers where I just did a show, like next thing there's like nothing. And then I didn't realize they had moved my show over to another platform. So they let me access to see the numbers, but I didn't get really a chance to, because like most people who do YouTube or something like that, they'll get an idea of when people fall off and this, whatever. I know I'm telling you technical things that anyone that's maybe a consumer or someone who's just learning as a student, you might not necessarily know this or it might not necessarily be important to you, but it is important to us who are the creators or the ones who are contributing to this way to go, did they even find interest in what I was sharing? Again, this is not just to be validated. This is to say, hey, is this making an impact on people's lives? I know I've learned some amazing things, and I know I'm sharing some very important personal things. But I just want to make sure that there's somebody's actually getting it, that it's actually genuinely helping them in some way, shape, or form. Anyway, I will admit, when I think back to it, how painful a lot of it was for me. The whole experience was a little bit interesting. I tried my best to be positive about it as much as I possibly could, but I have to admit that when I finally got excited was right around the time I did my last show with you guys because I had this wonderful idea. I had come across something where I thought, I'm noticing nowadays they say that people like the shorter, don't necessarily. I'm old school. I don't mind doing an hour and a half of listening to somebody else's share, but the average person might not necessarily want such long content videos, or maybe even if I do share some really important things in one, I thought, geez, the more content I end up putting out there, it might be really hard for somebody to catch up. So I had this wonderful idea of ways where I could create some, contribute and have some stuff that's a little bit shorter content that would end up explaining what was in a specific episode, giving you a bit of a breakdown of it. So that way, we'll say, for example, if you refer a friend or it's somebody else that was coming on this journey, that way they can sift through and go, that one sounds really interesting. Maybe I want to do the full episode. I was just finding, and I also was thinking of doing like quizzes and different things like that. Again, this is not about testing you. This is about how much are you retaining on what I'm sharing with you. There's a big difference. I take an interest in what I'm doing. I take this work very seriously because of the fact that I just know how much it can really help you when you're actually applying it and becoming more tangible and real for you inside, not just a concept or an idea that you can rationalize, but it hasn't fully become you, your essence, right? Anyways, I'm just thinking out loud about that because these are the things that I've been navigating through. So anyway, the last show that I had shared, and we couldn't put it on their YouTube channel because there was strike for some other people that they had produced. It wasn't necessarily myself, which was another thing too, because what people were not thinking were the ones that were the other creators, that whatever decision they make would impact other people. Like with where I'm at on my spiritual journey, I'm always thinking in a lot of cases about how this will impact something else. And I mean, that when you get to a certain point on your spiritual path, that's just a natural thing for us to do. So that was a bit of a bummer because that would affect that. But anyways, I was grateful because they at least streamed to my YouTube channel, which I hadn't been working on that much because it was a lot for me to get accustomed to sharing so much of myself out publicly. I'm not going to lie to you. Anyway, and trying to think of different ideas that might be of interest. And as I committed to this show, I had thought about different people that I would have wanted to interview. I ended up, getting to know some people in different NDE communities. Some of that did take a little bit of my time and energy. Some of it was a wonderful experiences. Some of it was challenging experiences. What I mean by challenging is I was on my own for a lot of years. I put myself out there years and years ago. I was very excited when I put myself out there years ago. I just was so excited at that time to share whatever I had with others. And not all of it was fun for me. The economy wasn't very good at that time. What I mean by that is I enjoyed what I was doing. I might not necessarily have had as much fun when I experienced some other people because they were all going through their own CRAP, right? Eventually, I would end up just pulling out on my own and just having my own journey with my spirituality and not necessarily doing as much with others, like collaborating or anything like that. I'm not sure if I'm going to go too far down that rabbit hole, but some of it did come up during while I was sharing this with this show because of the fact that maybe some of it was similar to me. I had found at the beginning of the year that I was getting more sensitive. I was starting to feel things. I felt like my gifts had expanded. And the whole thing is when you're intuitive like I am and you're sensitive like I am, even though I'm pretty clear about it'll, and then mixing my energy with other groups, and some of them were just sharing groups, and then some of them were more business-minded groups, and everyone has their own goals and their intentions, and they're not always telling you everything that their goal is because they're too busy trying to facilitate for you. I would just got to the point where I'm like going, I want to make sure that wherever I am going, I'm going because that's where I really feel like I'm meant to go instead of necessarily feeling like I'm just getting pulled off into, I don't know if you have any of you have ever studied some of the Abraham Hicks teachings, but basically, according to Esther's teachings, and I do think there are other spiritual teachers that talk about that, whoever has the strongest desire and puts the clear desire out there is the one that everything gravitates more to what they want. And the truth of the matter is, for whatever reason during this period of time, even though I've been a fabulous manifester, for some reason, since the beginning of the year, I have just been letting people show up the way they are. I have not been putting a clear desire that, exactly about, oh, it has to be that, or I really want it to be this, or whatever. I would prefer the people to be respectful and kind and this, and whatever. But what I mean by that is I wasn't really putting these strong desires out there, what I wanted. I was just allowing things to present in and just seeing how, and I feel in my heart, in a way, I just wanted to see who people were without me putting the positive slant on them. I just wanted everyone to show up the way they were. And instead of me putting a slant on, go, oh, I'll make it more a positive experience. I'll make it more whatever. Or I'll create it better. I just allowed people to just be who they were. Just wanted to see, well, because I realized maybe on some level that was can be a good thing, but it also can be perhaps maybe putting a little bit too much of what I want slant on it. And I would just much more prefer people to just show up because that's what they want to do in the first place. So that was just something that I was allowing myself to be. Anyway, where I'm going now is so we've got in the middle of May, they've moved it over to a different thing. They're telling me it's all for whatever. And then I'm saying to him, listen, I really came across this thing. I'm really excited about it. And my producer was like, oh, yeah, I've got to do this. We got to do this filming stuff. And truthfully, when they told me what they were doing, I was concerned about them because I really did care about these people. And even though we're here in some way, we were here in some way to create and somehow manifest a living of some sort or lead us towards that, or the whole purpose of it was initially because they did show ad revenue that they made off of my show. And I'm not going to lie to you. Initially, when I saw it, I said, I'm glad someone's making money off my show because it really didn't feel like it was doing that much for me personally. I'm not going to lie to you. It was, and aside from like the vulnerable part from myself, and then so now we've got these people that have produced the thing. He's showing me how well it is. And then the next thing, it's moved. The next thing I am getting really excited because I figure I wait, but I'm gonna have to have access to my transcripts because I needed to clean up my transcripts to move in the direction of what I wanted to do. And he was like, "Oh yeah, sure." He said, "I'll talk to you next week." And next week would never happen. Next week happened. It's just that it would not. And for someone like me that is telepathic, it was really hard on me. I'm not going to lie to you. And there were lots of times where that happened throughout the months. Actually, they would be like, yeah, we'll talk. And then that would not happen. And I do think that it did affect me on some level. I might not necessarily allowed it to affect me all the time, but in the back of my mind, I feel like it was something wasn't necessarily sitting right. And I've had other characters doing that to me in these past few months too. So on the highest level of truth, I wasn't enjoying any of those experiences, to be honest with you. I still genuinely care about all these people, but as far as I'm concerned, that's not the type of relationships that I like to experience. And truthfully, I feel like for me, it's such a waste of energy and it's really hard on me, especially with me being more a telepathic type of person, right? Because when I'm in the middle of something, And then the person says, yeah, whatever, that energy just keeps looping until it's completed. So if they're like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Let's do it next week. Yeah, like they think they're being really wonderful just because they're happily saying something that they have absolutely no intention of following through whatsoever. I even give them their space, like whatever, it might not be at the beginning of the week. I'll give them a couple of days and then I'll reach out and then nothing. And then I reach out and then nothing. And then I give it a couple more, nothing. And then like a week later or a week and a half later, I'm like going, I can't take it anymore. What the heck's going on here? But it's just such a waste of energy. And at the same time, I feel like I have this unfinished conversation. It's like sometimes when I've had people over the years reach out to me and want to do work, and I start doing work and then they backpedal. I'm already getting all this information for them, right? I'm already getting all this information. See, they think when I'm talking to them, that's the only time. Like when I talk to them or I send them an email, they don't realize I'm working with them in between too. Like it might not necessarily be the whole time, but when I'm in the middle of doing stuff, sometimes my guides will download something or I'll have a flash of something or I'll see something or I'll just know something. So I'm holding all that information until I'm supposed to communicate that to them. And then if they change their mind or maybe they got part of the healing and they think that's all that it's capable of, maybe they feel a little bit better. They don't realize there's so much more that they could have gotten out of the experience with me. And now I'm stuck with it. What am I supposed to do with that? I've got all this knowledge about them, and now I'm just stuck with all of it, just sitting there spewing around in my consciousness because I never got to complete what I was doing. And that's the part that can be so challenging because I do feel like sometimes I am following like instruction, guidance. I'll give you an example. Like when my ex, I kept thinking about him and I called his sister, like this is years ago, this beginning of lockdown. And I'm like, I think there's something not right with him. I called him and he hasn't answered. He's never not answered the phone. And she said, I just talked to him. I said, I just feel like there's something not right. And oh no, he's okay. I just saw him the other day. I'm like, oh, then I whatever, and it'll come back to me. See, that's the whole thing. If I'm unfinished with something and it's important, I will just keep like almost like a dog on a bone. So then the next thing I'm trying to find a way to get through to his building. Well, okay, because my car couldn't drive that far at the time. I'm sitting there going, okay, what do I do now? So now I'm trying this. Now I get to the superintendent of the building, and she's kind of hemming on because she hears me as his ex. She's, oh, it's your, listen, I might be his ex, but I said, we're close. I said, this guy would not blow me off. I just know him. I don't care if he's getting laid by someone else. I just know him. He would tell me, he would answer the phone. So it ended up, I had to take 2 days. What I mean by that is if I have a message and it keeps coming back, I have to complete that. I have to complete it. People have no idea what it's like to follow that and the commitment that you have to yourself and to know guidance to even be that firm to follow through. That's what I'm saying. Some people think that I'm, oh, she's someone, oh, she's nice, oh, she'll forgive me. But they don't realize when it comes to certain things, I have to be aggressive. I will bug the crap out of somebody if it's not completed. And now it's making me think of there was a couple weeks ago, actually, I wanted to share it with you guys. It ended up, I was feeding in the middle of the night and I saw a vehicle like across the street from me running, but I was just like, oh, maybe it's somebody in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Maybe they're visiting their friends and left the car running. I just kind of let it go. But then whatever sequence of events happened, I was looking more in the back. I end up like feeding more in the back in the middle of the night, and then around 9 o'clock in the morning, I decide to come out to look in the front. Next thing I still see that car running with windows closed, and I can't see bodies sitting in it. And then I gotta, it's still running. And then I go up to the car and I see people sleeping and they're like laying back and it ended up that I was like, oh my God, because I knew of someone whose loved ones had died of monoxide poisoning by staying in an enclosed vehicle for a long period of time. And my heart just went crazy. So next thing I'm pounding on the window, next thing, and there were young people and they were moving. So they're like, we're just tired. And I'm like going, something inside of me just didn't feel right. Something inside me very concerned that was carbon monoxide. I said, can you do me a favor? Can you just drop your window, please. So I came back in. I came back in. I waited a little bit, finished up some stuff with the dishes and things like that with the animal stuff. And then it ended up that I thought I got to give myself an excuse to go back to check on these people. So I decided to give them a couple bars. So I come back and I head back to them and I wanted to see how fast they're moving after with when I come back with the bars because they were young people. They're sleeping in their car. I'm like thinking, oh my God, did they get in a fight with their parents? Did they run away from home? Anyway, so I come to give the bars and they're still moving really slow. These people have been sleeping since 3 o'clock in the morning. It's 9 o'clock. That's a long time. Anyway, long story short is I would come in and I started talking to Gemini about it. And Gemini said, listen, like carbon monoxide is not anything to play around with. I checked their license plates. I did check their license plate, but I didn't want them to see that I did it, right? So I'd come inside. Before I talk to Gemini, I come inside and I try to see if the license plate was a stolen vehicle or someone ran away, whatever. So I'm trying to Google it, but where do you go to look for stuff like that? So the next thing, that's when I start to talk to Gemini. Gemini says, listen, if it's carbon monoxide, this is not something to play around with, right? So it ended up, they suggested that I call the police. Anyway, long story short is it ended up being a stolen vehicle. But then even that in itself made me go, what? And they didn't move that fast. And it was like, so still, I was still feeling the whole time that it was carbon monoxide that has made them like not right. People were trying to say about drugs. And even when I was talking to the police officers, I was like, and they're like, no, I was probably just, I said, listen to me. And I'll be honest with you, I could feel that the police officers were like one ear out the other. It was just like, oh no, it's drugs. They were just totally, and I have a feeling that maybe one of them were fighting with their parents. The parents reported the car stolen. This is what my heart says, okay? But all I can say is this is I said that to the police officers. I said, listen, please, I'm telling you right now, check them for that first before you think that they're rebelling and not trying to answer you. I said, I just have a feeling because I'm telling you right now, a criminal, a real criminal, would have ran away from some chick like me, bugging the crap out of them. You're waking them up and then trying to give them bars. They would have been like, I got to get out of here but they didn't do that, right? So anyway, I tried to do it as much as possible while the police officers were here. And again, they were just like, one ear and out the other. And in the midst of all that, one of my neighbors a few doors down decided to get upset with the police officers because something else she had experienced. So great, now I've got to mediate this. And then I come back in and I could not stop thinking about the fact that they might be ignoring what I'm telling them. And even though I understood that these people might have stole something, they were young and people do stupid stuff. I cared about them as human beings. I really did. I'm happy for the person whose vehicle got stolen. They got it back and it wasn't ruined or anything like that. But I also cared about these people. That's where the whole thing started in the first place. I made a point that I would call again a couple more times. And I basically told one of the last officers, I said, listen, I'm an intuitive person and I'm following my guidance. I said, I will bug the crap out of you until I stop thinking that I have to do this. And the only way I'm going to stop thinking I have to do this is actually, there will be something inside of me that will just know that you heard me. So you're better off to just follow what I've asked you to do, or I'm just going to keep bugging the crap out of you until you do. That's what's going to happen because that's what I ended up having to do with my ex. That's what I ended up having to do a lot of other experiences. And I'm like going, listen, when I get into something like this and I know this is a message that I have to convey, I will bug the crap out of the people until it's done because it's just going to keep coming back to me until it's done. That's the reason why. Just keep getting that loop and loop again until I complete what I'm supposed to do because in that way I'm a messenger. So I guess what I'm trying to say, so I'm in the middle of this show thing, and then they end up, they promised that I would be able to access these transcripts. And then it ended up that they ended up taking everything, taking all of our shows, moving over to another platform and closing. They just closed on us. And now I'm like, what am I going to do? I was really attached to the idea of what I wanted to do with the content that I had just created, not attached, oh my God, I can't live without. attached because I just love the concept of the idea of what I wanted to do with it. And now I was finally excited about something. Now you pulled the rug out from underneath me. Anyway, long story short is I would end up having to create in a positive way. Really wanted to do this in a positive way because I did really care about them. And I'm not sure. I've decided to do this on Zoom, my free Zoom, and I might not be able to do as long as I really wanted it. I'm not necessarily sure if I'm going to have enough time to share everything that I want to share with you guys today. But long story short is I made a conscious decision and I tried my best to let them know. I said, listen, I have a choice here. I can see it this way, that you intentionally did this for whatever reason, or I can do it this way and approach it from a much more positive way of looking at it. And thank you. And for keeping our files safe, I'm going to choose to do because when I did cry about this, I did not cry about what they did to me, even though when I was navigating through it, later on, I would give myself the permission to have the feelings I had, that whatever they did put me through in the meantime. But the truth of the matter is, when I cried about it, I cried about what we could have created together. Because initially they had reached out, they had wanted to do a manifesting channel, and I'm pretty good at manifesting. And I wanted them to experience it. If they would have told me some of the things, I think we could have created some wonderful stuff together. And that is what I said. I said, when I cried about what you could have learned from our interaction with each other, if we really would have done this from the place where I've come to know what's possible with spirituality, right? So I said that's the real sadness that I had that came up about this experience, right? And then I made a decision that I let them know that I love them and I would this and whatever. And then, but I still would have to navigate through. I still would have to figure out how to play this without being played because everyone's got their own agendas now. Obviously, they had their own agenda throughout the whole experience, but this is my life they're around with. Excuse my language, but it's true. So the miracle in all of it was right when it was coming up to a head, like it was right coming to a head, I was starting to lose patience because I was so excited about this other thing. And now I've had to do all this other stuff to get my thing back where I wanted to do this over here. I was finally excited again. I hadn't been excited for the longest time, genuinely excited about something that I wanted to create that would help others. And I would think I would enjoy making it too, and this and that, whatever. And I'm getting ready to kind of lose it, okay? And that's totally defeats the whole purpose of what I'm trying to accomplish at this point in the energy. Because I told my producer, I said, I would not want to be you. I would not want to be you with all the anger that's being projected onto you right now. Because there were probably a lot of other people, no matter how spiritual, they were not necessarily handling probably in the same way that I was trying my best to approach things, right? So there was a certain point, and if any of you remember, my last show was about the benevolent Lucifer that Garnet Schulhauser had brought into my reality. So there was a certain point where I'm ready to lose it. I'm like, benevolent Lucifer, please get them to do something. And I tell you, within a minute or two, something would open up. And then there was a couple hours later, because it was on a Friday, and I wanted to make sure that I got this done on Friday. I didn't know if I wanted to be tortured for a whole weekend all over again. And I was like, getting ready to lose it again. And then I would say, benevolent Lucifer, please do, whatever. And the next thing that when, he helped with that as well. And that the next thing moved. And I was like, and then there was one more part where I just said, rip the Band-Aid off, please rip the Band-Aid. Just let the pain end. When it finally cleared up. And I realized, oh my God, isn't that just amazing how the benevolent Lucifer was the one that helped me to resolve that when my last show, prior to all of it, was about those things. I thought it was a miracle. And then I ended up sharing it with someone else. And then I was so excited sharing about that. And then their perception of it was I gave my power away to Lucifer in a negative way. And I'm like, oh my God, like these people just put me through a whole bunch of shit. I tried my best to handle this with integrity and in the most positive way possible. And now you're thinking that I'm doing like something wrong. It's like I'm proud of myself on how I handled this, like under these circumstances, because like, it was harmful what was done. Okay. Anyways, so, and I'm just trying to not perpetuate that CRAP, right? So that kind of bummed me out, and I think it did delay me from doing a show with you guys because I'm like going, if this is somebody that's consumed my content and does know me and that's their perception of it, how are you guys going to respond? But you know what? I'm at a point, if you get it, great. And if you don't, I don't know what else to tell you. I don't know if I want to sit there and talk one language and people hear another one from me. I don't think I can take it much longer. There are a lot of other things that I have want to disseminate out and share, but I feel like, so what I will share with you, I'm going to try my best. I'm not as sure if it's going to be Wednesdays at 8 o'clock or it might be a little bit earlier. I haven't made that decision yet. I've got to teach myself a few other things. I have bills that I have to pay. I had to work with clients too. I to make my living while I'm getting back my show and everything else. And then on top of it, I still do take care of the animals, which consumes a considerable amount of my time and energy. I guess all I'm trying to tell you guys is it's been a bit of a ride, and I do want to somehow continue doing this. I'm just going to trying to find the easiest way to do this. I know that maybe when I did finally get it back, I had to move it like to another platform, and I haven't really. Problem is, by them taking it all away, now I have to teach myself other things that I might not necessarily fully learn. And I don't know if I have that many other people in my reality that can actually understand half the stuff I'm telling them, but you guys probably don't even understand. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm doing the best that I can right now, and I'll try my best to keep you guys updated on some other things that it has been a journey, and I am proud of myself on how I handled getting it back. That I apologize for you guys for not sharing as much during that period of time, but I did have to go through my own processing and questioning, should I or shouldn't I share some of the different challenges? Like that whole thing with those young people was in the midst of all of that. I'm just called sometimes to do things that might not necessarily help to pay my bills, but will consume a considerable amount of my time and energy, right? So I'm just doing the best that I can. Anyway, so listen, I think I better stop this because I'm concerned that I'm going to be running out of time to be able to complete this. So listen, lots of love to you guys. Now, so the platform that I'm actually using is Spreaker. Sorry, the last one I said Spotify. It's actually Spreaker. So please keep an eye out for that because I can actually post in there. And I wouldn't mind some input from you guys. Like, please, like talking to hello, hello. It's a little bit like it. It would be really nice if you could. I would appreciate that. Rose at theperfectrose.ca or that, yeah, I sometimes you can visit on my Facebook and comment or something like that. I wouldn't mind some input from you guys. I really would appreciate that. Anyways, listen, lots of love to you. Thank you so much for listening to me today. I just want to make sure that I can at least post this out there so you guys get a bit of an update of what happened and why I was having a little bit of a time getting back to you and talking to you. Anyway, thank you. Lots of love. Bye for now.